160 leagues to the north of the treason at Tumbleton are the Dragon's Sword above the Trident, where Prince Daemon Taaragaryen and the small brown girl called Nettels were hunting Aemon One-Eye without success, always one step behind him. They based themselves at Maidenpool at the invitation of Lord Manfred Mooten, who lived in terror of Vhagar descending upon his town and hoped the presence of Daemon would act as a deterrent. Instead, Prince Aemon struck at Stony Head in the foothills at the Mountains of the Moon, at Sweet Willow on the Green Fork, and Sallydance on the Red Fork. He reduced Bowshot Bridge to embers, burnt Old Ferry and Crone's Mill, destroyed the Mother House at Beechester, always vanishing back into the sky before the hunters could arrive. Vhagar never lingered, nor did the survivors agree on which way the dragon had flown. Each dawn, Caraxes and Sheepstealer flew from Maidenpool, climbing higher by the Riverlands in ever-widening circles in hopes of spying Vhagar below, only to return defeated at dusk. It was hard and tiring work. The chronicles of Maidenpool tell us Lord Mooten made so bold as to suggest that the dragon riders divide their search so as to cover twice the ground. Prince Daemon refused strongly. Vhagar was the last of the 3 dragons that had come to Westeros with Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters, he reminded his lordship. Though slower than she had been a century before, she had grown nigh as large as Balerion the Blackdread himself. Her fires burnt hot enough to melt stone, and neither Caraxes nor Sheepstealer could match her ferocity. Only together could they hope to withstand her, and so he kept the girl Nettles by his side day and night, in castle and sky. This is where our tale turns to rumours. Yet, was fear of Vhagar the only reason Prince Daemon kept Nettles so close to him? Mushroom would have us believe it was not. By the dwarf's account, Daemon Targaryen had come to love the small brown Dragonseed girl and had taken her into his bed. How true the rumour is? Well, that depends how much you believe Mushroom. Nettles was no more than 17 at the time, and Prince Daemon 49, closer to 50. Yet the power young maidens exerted over the older man was well documented. Daemon Targaryen was not a faithful consort to the queen. That is very well known. The normally recitant Septon Eustace writes of his nightly visits to Lady Mysaria, whose bed he often shared whilst at court, with the Queen's blessing, purportedly. Nor should it be forgotten that during his youth, every brothel keeper in King's Landing knew that the Lord of Fleabottom took a special delight in maidens, and kept the youngest and prettiest, and more innocent of the new girls for him. The girl Nettles was young, beyond doubt, but it seems doubtful that she was a true maiden given her background, growing up homeless, motherless, and penniless on the streets of Spicetown and Hull, on the island of Driftmark, where most likely she would have surrendered her innocence long ago in return for half a goat or a crust of bread, and the sheep she fed the sheepstealer to bind him to her now. How would she have come by those being so poor, if not by lifting her skirts for some shepherd? Nor could Nettles truly be called pretty. A skinny brown girl on a skinny brown dragon, writes Munkin. Septon Eustace says her teeth were crooked, her nose scarred where it had been slit for thieving. Hardly a paramour for a prince, one would think. But again, Daemon Targaryen was not a normal prince. Against that we have the testimony of Mushroom, and in this case the Chronicles of Maidenpool, as set down by Lord Mooten's Maester. Maester Norrin writes the prince and the bastard girl ate together every night, broke their fast together every morning, slept in adjoining bedchambers, that the prince doted upon the brown girl as a man might dote upon his daughter, instructing her in common courtesies and how to dress and sit, how to brush her hair, that he made gifts to her of ivory-handled hairbrushes, a silver-looking glass, a cloak of rich brown velvet, bordered in satin, a pair of riding boots of soft leather. Some go as far to suggest that there are similarities with how he began his relationship with Rhaenyra all those years ago. It was also said that Prince taught the girl to wash, that maidservants who fetched their bath water said he often shared a tub with her, soaping her back and washing the dragon stink from her hair, both of them as naked as their name days. None of this constitutes proof that Daemon Targaryen had carnal knowledge of the Dragonseed girl, but in light of what followed, we must surely judge that for once the truth may stem more from the tales of Mushroom. Yet, it is certainty that their days were spent prowling the skies hunting for Prince Aemon and Vhagar without success. So let's leave them there for now and turn our gaze briefly across Blackwater Bay. It was about this time that the battered merchant cog Nerissa came limping into the harbour beneath Dragonstone to make repairs and take on provisions. She had been returning from Penn to Old Volantis, where a storm drove her off course, But to this common song of peril at sea, the volunteers added a queer note. As Rhaenrya beat westward, the dragon mount loomed up before them against the setting sun, and the sailors spied 2 dragons fighting, their roars echoing off the sheer black cliffs off the Smoky Mountains' eastern flanks. In every tavern, inn and whorehouse along the waterfront, the tale was told, retold, and embroiled, until every man on Dragonstone had heard it. Dragons were a wonder to the men of old Volantis. The sight of 2 in battle was one the men of Rhaenrya would never forget. Those born and bred on Dragonstone had grown up with such beasts. Yet even so, the sailor's story excited interests. The next morning, some local fisherfolk took their boats around the dragon mount and returned to report seeing the burned and broken remains of a dead dragon at the mountain's base. From the colour of its wings and scales, the carcass was that of Grey Ghost. The dragon lay in 2 pieces and had been torn apart and partly devoured. On hearing this news, Sir Robert Quince, the amiable and famously obese knight, whom the Queen had named Castellan of Dragonstone upon her departure, was quick to name the dragon Cannibal as the killer. Most agreed that the Cannibal had been known to attack smaller dragons in the past, though seldom so savagely. Some amongst the fisherfolk, fearing the killer might turn upon them next, urged Quince to dispatch knights to the beast's lair to put an end to him, but the Castellan refused. "We do not trouble him. The Cannibal will not trouble us," he declared. To be certain of that, he forbade fishing in the waters beneath the dragon mount's eastern face, where the vanquished dragon's body lay rotting. His decree did not satisfy his relentless charge, Rhaenrya Targaryen, Prince Daemon's daughter by his first wife, Rhaenrya Targaryen. At 14, Rhaenrya was a wild and willful young girl, more boyish than ladylike, and very much her father's daughter. Though slim and short of stature, she knew naught but of fear, and lived to dance and hawk and ride. As a younger girl, she had often been chastised for wrestling with the squires in the yard, but as of late she had taken to playing kissing games with them instead. Not long after Queen Rhaenyra's court removed the King's Landing, Rhaenrya had been caught allowing a kitchen scullion to slip his hand inside her jerkin. Sir Robert, outraged, had sent the boy to the block to have the offending hand removed. Only the girl's tearful insurrection had saved him. "She's overly fond of boys," the Castellan wrote to Rhaenrya's father, Prince Daemon, after the incident, "and should be married soon, lest she surrender her virtue to someone unworthy of her." Even more than boys, however, Lady Rhaenrya loved to fly. Since first riding her dragon Moondancer into the sky, not half a year past, she had flown every day, ranging freely to every part of Dragonstone and even across the sea to Driftmark. Always eager for adventure, the girl now proposed to find the truth of what happened on the other side of the mountain for herself. She had no fear of Cannibal, she told Sir Robert. Moondancer was younger and faster, she could easily outfly the other dragon, but the Castellan forbade her taking any such risk. The garrison was given strict instructions. Lady Rhaenrya was not to leave the castle. When caught attempting to defy his command, that very night, the angry maiden was confined to her chambers. Though understandably, this proved in hindsight to be unfortunate, for had Lady Rhaenrya been allowed to fly, she might have spied the fishing boat that was even then making its way around the island. Abroad was an aged fisherman called Tom Tanglebeard, his son, Tom Tangletongue, and 2 cousins from Driftmark, left homeless when Spice Town was destroyed. The younger Tom was handy with a tankard as he was clumsy with a net, had spent a deal of time buying drinks for volunteering sailors and listening to their accounts of the dragons they had seen fighting. Grey and gold they was, flashing in the sun, one man said. And now, in defiance of Sir Robert's prohibition, the 2 Toms were intent on delivering their cousins to the stony strand where the dead dragon sprawled, burned and broken, so they might seek after his slayer.